Okay, thanks everybody for coming in today. So this talk is about keeping track of your health using a variety of health monitoring devices. This will be both software and devices. We'll talk about a range of the options that are out there. If you have any questions, you can ask them as I go, or you can wait until the end and we'll have a question period then. Okay? Let's see. So this presentation is provided by the Brain Injury Association of Waterloo-Wellington, and we're able to do this series of presentations because of our funding that's done by the Government of Canada and the Government of Ontario. So they provide the funding for programs such as this, including this one. So I just want to get started by talking a little bit about the different types of health monitoring tools that are out there. There's a wide variety of them, so it can be a little bit hard sometimes to imagine what this looks like. One of the most common types of health monitoring tools is a wearable device. So this is something like a smartwatch, which is what I'm wearing, and I have a picture of up on the screen. So this can be things like Fitbits, Apple Watches, Samsung watches, things like that. And more recently, it's also become rings. So there are rings you can wear. So I'll talk about those a little bit later. So there's wearable devices. There are also smartphone apps. So a lot of smartphones will have their own dedicated health app like Samsung Health or Apple Health. Those are apps which help you keep all of your health information in one place. So anything that the phone records, or if you have a watch that it records, it can all come together in that app. So you can have it all accessible in one place. You can also keep track of how much water you've been drinking or how you've been eating in those apps as well. So they have a variety of different things, but each of them looks a little bit different. So there's the default ones that are provided by the phone manufacturer, so Samsung or Apple, but there's also ones that are third party, so made by other companies. So they'll have maybe some unique features that maybe aren't available on the default apps. So those are worth looking into as well. So there's a wide variety of them. Something else in this category are smart home devices. Now, this can be a talk on its own. There's a lot to say about smart home devices, but with these are usually remote devices like an Alexa or a Google Nest Hub, which some of you might be familiar with. And the big benefit of those is that they're voice powered. So they can just sit on a shelf somewhere. And if you need something, you can talk to them. So here they can provide some information on your health, but they can also be used to make emergency calls if you need. If you can't get up or if you can't reach your phone, you can use a voice command to access any of those things. So that's why we kind of lump them into this category here. What we also include in this category are specialized medical devices. So things like blood pressure cuffs or glucose monitors. You might not think of these as necessarily devices, but they are health monitoring tools, and it's important to know about some of the ones that exist here. So I will talk about them a bit more in detail later. And then there are also AI-powered health assistants. I'll get into this a little bit more later as well. So there's a wide variety of different types, which is why it can be a little bit confusing sometimes about what might be the best way to track your health, just because there's so much out there. So I want to start off by what to me is one of the most common or most prominent types of health monitoring tools or devices, which is step and activity tracking. So this is essentially some sort of device that can track your steps and your level of activity. And you'll see throughout this talk that I want to show multiple different types. There's basic tools and there's more advanced tools. So when you think of devices that can help you track your health, it doesn't necessarily need to be some sort of complicated device that's super advanced, super expensive, whatever, it is. There really is a variety of different ways you can do it. So when you look at step tracking, steps are tracked with something called a pedometer, which measures your steps. And it can really be something as simple as this little object on the left, which is really just an analog device that will use your up and down motion to detect steps. But it can be more advanced. So a lot of phones will have built-in pedometers in them. So your phone probably already has been logging your steps. You might not have it enabled maybe, but if you poke around, you might see that unbeknownst to you, your phone has been tracking how many steps you've been taking every single day for the last while, as long as you carry your phone on you. So any steps you would have taken without your phone, that wouldn't have been tracked. But if you did have your phone with you, that would have been tracked. More advanced tools, there are these wearable devices. So watches, for example, these are a little bit easier to have on you. You can just wear your watch. So I can step out, go somewhere and leave my phone here, but my steps will still be tracked with my watch. And the benefit of these is they have a couple more features that are built in. I'll talk a little bit about this more, but they can measure your heart rate, your blood oxygen level, and they're also generally, I think, a little bit more accurate in their step estimates. So whereas your phone might be in your pocket and it might not necessarily be capturing your steps as well, the technology in a watch is a little bit better at really getting the accurate number of steps that you were getting. If you're very into working out, these devices also keep track of your activity levels. So you might, let's say if I want to go out and do a workout, I can go on my watch and say, I'm going on a run. And so it knows that my arm motion is not just a walk, I'm doing a run. And so it'll adjust its estimates accordingly. So a lot of these watches might give you they'll give you a result for how far you went. That'll be based on GPS, but they might also give you an estimate of how many calories you burned, for example. And so those will be based off of what sort of activity you're doing. And obviously, running will burn more calories than walking. They'll often have options for other types of workouts, such as playing soccer, going on an elliptical, a mixed workout, weights, things like that. So you can always preset those before you do them in your watch. My watch will automatically detect if I'm doing something for 10 minutes or more. But if I want to really be accurate about it, I can just manually set, I'm doing a workout now, and it'll pay attention to all those things as I do it. So some people really like having some sort of visual or quantified representation of their activity. They want to see a number, they want to know what sort of activity they did for how long on which days. These devices really help with that sort of thing. If you have some sort of goals that you've set for yourself, it's really easy to compare your progress against those goals by having devices that can tell you what sort of things you've been doing. Okay. So I mentioned that some of these devices have heart health monitors. So a heart health monitor, again, can be something as simple as a blood pressure cuff. And it, again, can be just a manual one that you pump with your hand and that will give you display on a dial. But it can also be a more advanced one, like the one on the right there, that is more digital and can connect to your phone. So a lot of them will have apps you can get on your phone. And so then your phone will have a record of your blood pressure over the last however many times you've done it, which is useful to keep everything in one place and sort of see any trends over time that you might be interested in. But you can also see some of this stuff in watches and even rings. So watches will have a little sensor on the back of them that touches your skin. And so an interesting fact about this that I learned as I was prepping for this presentation is the way that they do it is they send a green light that shines on your arm, and any blood that's flowing through the veins underneath your skin where the light is pointing, the blood is red, it'll absorb the green light. And the more blood there is, the more of the red light that's absorbed by that blood. So that's kind of how it does it. So the idea here is it's a very neat trick, but they're not perfect. So I will talk about this throughout the presentation. And one of the main themes of this is that any sort of health information that these give you they're a good guess, but they're not perfect. These are not medical grade devices. They do their best guess at measuring it. So when the watch shines the light and it measures how much blood is flowing underneath your skin, that can be affected by things like movement. So if I move my arm, there might be more blood flow, and so it'll maybe not detect the pulse as well. So again, not a medical grade device, but they are usually pretty accurate. So some of these watches can also then detect irregularities. So if you have it set to measure your heart rate and you see that the heart wave kind of looks funny, or I don't know, maybe even some watches might give you a warning, this is a good thing to keep in mind, and it's a good thing to talk to your doctor about, but it's not necessarily going to be 100% accurate. It's not giving you a diagnosis. So just make sure you're keeping that in mind. Along with heart rate, some devices can measure blood oxygen levels. Again, not perfectly, but they do a pretty good job. I used to have a phone which would shine a light, and I'd put my finger on it, and that could measure how much blood oxygen I had. So that's another thing that they can do. One other thing is sleep tracking. So all of the devices I mentioned before have some sort of sleep tracking capabilities. Generally, wearable devices will have more insights than non-wearable ones. So my phone, for example, can tell me how long I slept for based on when I put my phone down for the night and when I picked it up in the morning. But if I am consciously making an effort not to use my phone for the last hour before bed, then that's an extra hour of sleep it thinks I got that I didn't actually get. So it's a guess. Whereas with some wearable devices, if you wear them to bed, based on your sometimes breathing, your heart rate, your movement, they will more accurately be able to tell when you fell asleep and when you woke up. And also for some of them, the sleep stages that you were in or how deep of a sleep you were experiencing. So I have a little graph that's outputted by a watch. And you can see here that the lower it is, the darker blue it is, the deeper the sleep. And then the red periods are the awake phases. And so this is somebody who would be constantly kind of getting awake throughout the night. And this might be, they might be consciously awake. They might just be waking up for a few seconds and falling back asleep and not even remember in the morning. But this is kind of a good insight to have as to what your sleep looks like. So you might see that you feel very well rested the next day, and you can see what your sleep looks like that night versus a morning where you wake up very tired, and you can look and see that you were maybe awake for a larger part of the night or not getting as deep of a sleep. So that's pretty neat, but just by keeping your watch on. So I've been talking about rings. So this is a newer device, but there are smart rings that have basically the same capabilities as a watch, just without the screen. You just wear them on your finger and they measure all of those health stats for you. So when measuring sleep, a ring here might be a little bit more convenient than a watch. It might be a little bit annoying to have your watch on your arm as you sleep. For some people, maybe less so. But as far as I know, rings as of right now are not as good as what their technology just hasn't progressed as much. Just I guess by them being smaller and being on your finger rather than your wrist, they just have their insights are not as good as a watch might be. And some people complain about the software itself. So watches are this, or sorry, the rings are up and coming, but maybe hold off on getting them if you are really looking at the quality of the insights that it gives you. But I think this is very neat. So if you have concerns about your sleep, this is a good sort of first step to do. And then if you, again, have any more concerns about your sleep, then you can go and do a sleep study. So again, this is not diagnostic, it's not medical grade, but it gives you an idea of what your sleep looks like. And again, this, if you have the apps on your phone, all this information goes right from your watch to your phone so that then you can just pull it up and everything is compiled in one place. So at this point, we've talked about steps and activity, heart, health, and sleep. That can all be kept in one place. So instead of having a separate program for each of those things, a lot of these health apps will combine them into one place. Next, I want to talk a little bit about tracking food and nutrition. So this will be less based on devices and more on software. So the main program, I think, for this is something called MyFitnessPal. This doesn't just have food and nutrition tracking, it has activity tracking as well. But I think what it's known for and what it does a lot of is tracking nutrition. So this is a really good way of keeping a food diary. If anybody here has certain nutrition goals that they want to maintain, whether it's certain nutrients they want to have more of, certain nutrients they want to have less of, anything like that, you can keep a diary. So you, whatever meal you have, you write down what you had, and it has the nutrition information built in. So you can say, right here, this person had a cup of strawberries. And they just have to write that and it'll put in how many calories that was, how many vitamins they got, how many other nutrients they would have received from that. So those can be really, really useful for if you do have a certain goal, but you know that you struggle with keeping a maybe a paper diary, or you just don't have a very good idea of it mentally. This is a very good way of doing that. And it can give you a breakdown of all that sort of stuff. One neat thing that it has is if you're eating any sort of packaged food, if you scan the barcode of the item, it'll instantly find the item, I think about 95% of the time, and it'll have all of that information already loaded in. So it's all community based. So people will go out and they'll upload those things themselves that the next time somebody scans a barcode, that information just comes up to the next person. So it's pretty neat. And it just kind of increases the convenience of this sort of thing. I think one thing with food diaries is that people generally underestimate how much they eat. So if you're making a sort of estimate, it's best to weigh your food if you're really on some sort of diet or there's something you want to keep track of how much you're having. It's good to weigh things or do things by weight. But then it's also important to keep track of, let's say if you're frying some sort of food, you don't want to just log that you had the food that you ate. You also want to log the oil you cooked it in, for example. So there's all these things that people miss sometimes. So if you really want to have a good, complete picture of your nutrition, make sure that you're really thinking carefully about all the stuff you're doing, or not, whatever it is that your goals are. More recently, there's now certain programs that can try to guess. So again, logging everything, bit by bit can be time consuming and can be quite an effort. So there are programs out there where you take a picture of the food that you ate and it'll do its best guess of saying what it is and what the nutrition value of that food was. This is less accurate, but more convenient. So I would recommend that you do, if this is something you want to do, that you keep a traditional diary like MyFitnessPal. But if you know that you're not going to be able to commit to it, or this is not something you can reasonably do, then maybe the option on the right is better for you. If this is something that you're looking into doing. Yes.
What program do you need to use for the photo diary?
I can't remember the name of it, but we can look into some of them after. Yeah. Are there any questions online? Emily, I don't know if you can see any.
Um, and shared that there's another website called fatsecret.ca that's very similar for tracking.
Okay. There's lots of different tools out there. So what I'm showing you isn't everything. There's lots and lots more out there. So just keep that in mind. I want to talk a little bit about brain health as well. There's a lot of talk of these
One more
brain health
question, Greg.
apps.
Mary
Sorry?
Pat had one more. Is the MyFitnessPal a free app?
Yes, it is free, but there are certain paid features.
Yeah.
So I believe recently the barcode feature might be paid. My account is old, so there's certain features that I have that aren't paid now, but were free when I got the app. But to do all of the tracking and the health insights, that's all free. I think the paid stuff is more if you want to have it really be personalized to you, if you have a certain plan or other stuff, but the base app is free. So are there any more questions online? Okay.
Nope, we are good.
Okay, so there's a lot of
Oh,
different,
and also asked if there's a voice recording diary that would also be something that would be helpful.
yeah, a lot of phones have a voice note app in them. So this is just a simple recording app. And so in there, you can just make recordings of what you ate. But I'm sure that there are ones out there that are specifically made to keep voice diaries. I don't know about ones for nutrition, but definitely there are voice diary apps out there. All right, so there's a lot of different brain health apps out there, and I wanted to split them into two categories and talk about them a little bit separately. So one of the types of apps that I see are usually game-based. They have a lot of different games, and these claim to improve brain function. So some of the ones that you might have heard of are Lumosity, Elevate, and Peak. These will send you usually daily challenges. They'll get you to perform a variety of activities, and these activities will claim to improve your brain health in some way. These are pretty useful, but they're not perfect. So they might be good at getting you to maybe practice your memory a little bit or to do different things, but they're not completely backed by science. That's my one sort of warning, is that they're fun to do and they might have a couple benefits, but they're not really gonna provide very dramatic changes. So if you are looking at improving your memory or doing some other brain exercises, I would just be cautious about your expectations with the results of some of these. I just need to check my battery quickly because I just got a warning on my computer. Make sure. Yes, I just need to get my charger. Oh,
Can people hear Greg? We can't hear him.
No, we can't hear him.
Oh, okay. Now, yeah, okay, makes sense.
Yeah, but we can hear her.
We can hear you, but we can't hear him.